Another day, another banger. Welcome back to Movies Outpost as we take you through all 7 Jurassic World movies. This recap will start from Jurassic Park and take us all the way to Jurassic World Rebirth. This highly requested recap was made to not miss a single detail, so without further ado, make sure you're comfortable and, as always, enjoy the recap. Jurassic Park begins on Isla Nublar, 120 miles west of Costa Rica, where several men have gathered to unload a dangerous animal. However, the gatekeeper gets caught by the creature, and although they use tasers, the weapons prove ineffective. They are forced to shoot it down, but unfortunately the man loses his life as well. The scene shifts to the Dominican Republic, where a lawyer named Donald Gennaro comes to meet the park's director, John Hammond. But he learns that John is busy with his daughter's divorce. Donald insists the matter is urgent, as they are facing a $20 million lawsuit by the victim's family, and the insurance company feels the park isn't safe, which worries the investors. He suggests they should invite some experts to vouch for the program's safety. Meanwhile, paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant and his girlfriend, paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, work on a site in Montana where they find the remains of a velociraptor using computer imaging. However, Alan is against using machines because he likes to get his hands dirty. While he's describing the anatomy of the velociraptor and how it looks similar to birds rather than reptiles, a child jokes that it doesn't look scary. So Alan gives him a detailed description of how they like to eat their prey alive, which scares him. John arrives in his helicopter, and although they aren't happy that he disturbed their research, he introduces himself as their funder, which embarrasses them. He tells them that he has leased an island near Costa Rica where he is working on a park, but his investors want him to get an expert opinion, so he wishes to invite them. They politely refuse his offer, but he tells them that in exchange for their help he will fully fund their research for the next 3 years, which finally convinces them. Meanwhile, Dennis Nedry, who works at John's island, meets a man sent by John's competitor, who bribes him to steal the 10 years of research John has done on dinosaurs in exchange for $1.5 million. He mentions that he needs viable embryos, otherwise they are of no use to him, and he gives Dennis a small container to transport them. On the helicopter, John introduces them to Dr. Ian Malcolm, who is a chaotician, and he explains that he follows chaos theory and nonlinear equations, but they are clueless about it. They soon land on the island, and Donald reminds John that he has 2 days to convince him about the safety of the project, otherwise they must shut it down. John reassures him that by that time he will be apologizing, as he feels confident in his dream project. He suddenly tells the driver to stop, and they see a huge brachiosaurus eating leaves. Alan and everyone else is shocked to see them alive like that, and Donald feels they will make a fortune from it. Alan wonders how fast they are, so John reveals that they measured the T-Rex's speed to be 32 miles per hour, which excites the couple, and they ask him if he really has a T-Rex on the island, which he confirms. They wonder how he made it all possible, so he takes them to the visitor center, where he explains that his park will be different from the rest, as it will feature living biological attractions that will definitely grab everyone's attention. He takes them to his presentation room, where he explains that all they need is a drop of blood to get someone's DNA, and with that they can clone anyone. Ellie wonders how he got centuries-old dinosaur blood, and he reveals that mosquitoes existed in that time too, and sometimes those mosquitoes after biting the dinosaur got trapped in tree sap, which over time hardened, thus preserving it. He further notes that they extracted the blood using specialized techniques, but the DNA had some gaps, which the geneticists filled using frog DNA. Alan and Ellie are so interested in the science behind dinosaurs that they leave the rest of the presentation to visit the laboratory. They meet Dr. Henry, and luckily, they are just in time to witness the hatching of the dinosaur eggs. Henry explains that the dinosaurs are only born inside the lab because all the animals in their park are females. Malcolm wonders how they can be sure that all the animals are female, so he explains that they control their chromosomes, ensuring that they don't receive the extra hormone they need in the developmental stage to turn male. Malcolm isn't convinced by the explanation because he believes human evolution has taught them that life always finds a way. Alan suddenly notices the tiny dinosaur, and he's shocked to learn that they have bred a violent species such as the velociraptor. They go to the raptor zone where they feed it a cow, and John introduces them to another member of his staff, Robert Muldoon, who is an expert on raptors. Alan asks him several questions, and he is shocked to know that they have intelligence, which makes them extremely dangerous, but John assures them that they have taken all safety precautions, such as installing electric fences. Robert reveals that these raptors always hit different parts of the fences as they try to find weak spots. He says that they originally had 8 velociraptors, but the one before them took out most of them, and now they only have 3. At dinner, John informs them that the park will be operational in a few months, and Donald thinks people will pay thousands of dollars to come here. But John reminds him that the park isn't just for the rich. Despite the assurances, Malcolm expresses his concerns over the project as he believes they are messing with nature because the scientists didn't care about the moral aspects of things. Ellie adds that these are violent animals and they have no clue how they will react outside their original ecosystem. John asks Alan for his opinion, and he thinks they can't predict what will happen when 2 species separated by millions of years come together. They are soon joined by John's grandchildren, Lex and Tim, who John thinks represent the actual target audience of the park. He leads them to the parked cars, which operate on a fixed line without the need for a driver. Tim seems to be a big fan of Alan, as he has even read all his books, but Alan feels uncomfortable as he hates kids. However, he's stuck with both the kids for the rest of the tour. John learns that they might experience a storm, and he starts the tour with a recorded voice, keeping the visitors updated. As they pass near the Dilophosaurus territory, they are told that it is one of the earliest carnivores, but unfortunately, they aren't able to see it. They are told that it spits venom that blinds and paralyzes its victim before eating it. The chief engineer, Ray Arnold, tells John that the vehicle headlights are on but not responding, so he questions Dennis, who thinks he isn't paid enough for his role. Meanwhile, the tour cars stop near the T-Rex's territory, and a goat is placed for it to feed upon. But Alan notes it's a natural hunter, so it doesn't like to eat like this. The dinosaur doesn't come out, so Malcolm faces the camera and sarcastically asks John when they will actually see any dinosaurs on the dinosaur tour. He thinks it all fulfills his chaos theory as the Tyrannosaurus doesn't obey the set pattern, but Alan suddenly gets out of the vehicle, and Ellie follows him. John isn't happy that they haven't installed any locking mechanisms on the moving vehicles, but they inform him that the system is showing a sensor error. Alan leads the group to a sick Triceratops, and he mentions he has always loved them since childhood, while Ellie asks the veterinarian about its condition. He tells them that it's experiencing some issues which seem to repeat every 6 weeks. So she checks its eyes and notices the pupils are dilated. She thinks it's due to a poisonous plant which she sees nearby, but the veterinarian informs her that the animals don't eat it. She still wishes to confirm her suspicion and checks its dung. John learns that the storm hasn't changed course, so he's forced to call them back, but Ellie decides to stay with the veterinarian while the rest of the group returns. Meanwhile, Dennis is late for the delivery, and he contacts the man he was supposed to deliver the embryos to, but he urges him to hurry as they can't wait for long due to the storm. Dennis informs John that he's going to grab some snacks, and he adds that he has debugged the phone, so some parts of the system might go on and off, but they don't need to worry about that. Dennis steals the embryo vials, and Ray notices the security systems are shutting down, but John thinks it's alright since Dennis had informed them about it. Meanwhile, Dennis steals all the vials, and Malcolm asks Alan if he is dating Ellie because he finds her interesting. Alan confirms that they are together, so he apologizes for asking the question, but the car suddenly stops moving. In the control room, they see that the fences are failing all over the park, so John asks them to find Dennis. Ray checks Dennis's computer, and John asks him if the Velociraptor's fence is also off, but he says it's on, so John wonders why Dennis turned off the rest. They try to restart the system, but everything is password protected and even the telephones don't work. Meanwhile, Tim notices a ripple in the water, and he thinks something big is moving toward them, which makes Donald nervous, but he says it might be the power coming back on. A piece of the goat's flesh lands on their car, and they see the Tyrannosaurus, which scares Donald, and he rushes out of the car, leaving the kids behind. Alan tells Malcolm not to move since their vision is based on movement, but the kids panic, and Lex turns on a big flashlight which attracts the Tyrannosaurus towards their car. It overturns their vehicle and almost crushes the kids, but Alan finds a flare, so he uses it to distract the dinosaur. Malcolm also grabs a flare to distract the dinosaur, and although he narrowly survives, it kills Donald, who is hiding in the toilet. As Alan pulls Lex outside, she sees the Tyrannosaurus in front of them and screams, but he urges her to keep quiet. They hide behind the car, and the Tyrannosaurus pushes it off the bridge while Alan and Lex barely hang onto a wire. John asks Robert to take the gas jeep and bring his grandchildren, so Ellie volunteers to go with him, while Ray informs him that they need Dennis to turn the system back online. Meanwhile, Dennis loses his way due to the storm and he gets in an accident. He finds a Dilophosaurus and thinks it's harmless, but it spits venom into his eyes, making him blind before it devours him. Alan tells Lex that he needs to go and look for Tim, but she fears he will also abandon them like Donald, but he reassures her that he will be back. He soon finds Tim stuck in the car, and he asks him to grab his hand, but Tim fears they won't make it. He promises not to tell anyone how Tim threw up, and he distracts him by talking about his childhood. They carefully climb down just before the car falls, and luckily the tree roots save them from getting crushed. Meanwhile, Robert and Ellie reach the place where the park vehicles stopped, and they find the remains of Donald. They hear Malcolm's voice and save him, but Ellie notices the other car down, so she goes to check. She finds shoe prints and realizes Alan and the kids are alive. Malcolm notices a tremor and he calls them back, so they barely evade the dinosaur chasing after them. Meanwhile, Alan and the kids climb a tree so they can be safe, and they notice several Brachiosaurus, which scare Lex, but Alan says they only eat plants. She wonders what he will do if he can't carry on his job of digging fossils, so he tells her that perhaps they must also evolve. He comforts the kids and they share some fun jokes, trying to forget the horrible stuff they just saw. Ellie tells John that she has given morphine to Malcolm, so he's resting. John reassures her that Alan and the kids will be safe because Alan is a dinosaur expert, so he is the ideal person in this situation. He confides to her that he had great hopes for this place, as he wanted to give the kids something they could touch and feel which wasn't an illusion. She tells him that sometimes it's important to feel things rather than think. He accepts she's correct and he shouldn't have been so dependent on Dennis and his automation, so the next time he will do things more perfectly. She thinks he never had control in the first place, and she reminds him that the only thing that matters is the people they love who are out there in danger. Alan and the kids wake up to see a brachiosaurus standing in front of them, which scares Lex, but they reassure her that it only eats plants, so she tries to touch it. However, it sneezes, covering her in a sticky liquid. They start exploring the forest and Tim feels sad that Lex won't try anything new now. He calls her a computer nerd, but she corrects him since she prefers to call herself a hacker. Alan suddenly stops as he sees broken dinosaur eggs, and he is surprised that they have already started breeding, but Tim reminds him that John said all the dinosaurs in the park are females. Alan believes it might be due to the frog DNA, as some West African frogs change their gender from male to female in a single-sex environment, which reminds him of Malcolm's theory. John realizes Dennis won't be coming back, so he tells Ray to shut down the system, hoping that when they turn it back on it will remove all the commands Dennis gave it. They restart the system, but it trips the circuit breakers, so Ray volunteers to go to the other side of the compound and turn it back on. Alan and the kids come across a Gallimimus pack, and he thinks they are evading a predator, moving in a flock like birds, but they suddenly change their direction toward them, so they hide under an old tree. A T-Rex suddenly comes and eats a Gallimimus, which frightens Lex, and they decide to cautiously escape. When Ray doesn't return and the system doesn't reboot, Ellie feels something is wrong, so she along with Robert goes to turn on the system. They soon notice dinosaur footprints, and Robert realizes even the fences on the velociraptors have gone off. They come across a dinosaur, and Robert asks Ellie to go ahead while he keeps it busy. Meanwhile, Alan and the kids reach the fence, and he realizes the power is off. But they suddenly hear a dinosaur's roar, so they rush to get across it. In the meantime, John and Malcolm guide Ellie, and she reactivates the system. But the fence turns back on before Tim can cross it, so he gets an electric shock. However, Alan catches him before he hits the ground. Ellie suddenly gets attacked by a velociraptor, but she closes the door between them. She feels Arnold's arm on her shoulder, which reassures her that she isn't alone, but she sees he's already dead. The velociraptor chases after her, and she barely manages to reach the outside and locks the metal door. Outside, Robert points his gun at a velociraptor, but another velociraptor shows up from the other side and kills him. Alan saves Tim with CPR, and they enter the visitor center, where Alan leaves the children to search for others. The children find food, and they are so hungry that they immediately start eating, but Lex notices a raptor, so they rush to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Alan finds Ellie, and she takes him to the bunker where John and Malcolm are hiding. She tells them that out of the 3 raptors, she has locked one in a room, and she thinks it won't be able to open a door, but we see the raptor opening the kitchen door. Lex notices the raptors are near Tim, so she distracts them despite being frightened herself. Together, they manage to lock the raptor in a freezer room, and they rush out where they meet the others. They rush to the control room where Alan holds the door, urging Ellie to boot up the door locks, but she notices he is struggling to hold the door alone, so she comes to assist him, while Lex takes over the computer. She manages to successfully reboot the system, which activates the door locks. Alan calls John and asks him to call the helicopters, but the dinosaur cracks the door glass, so they shoot at it, which makes John worry for his grandchildren. They climb the ceiling, and the raptor tries to catch them, but Alan kicks it, and it almost makes Lex fall as well. However, Alan pulls her back. As they enter the hall, the raptors try to attack them, but a T-Rex comes and eats one of the raptors, so the other one starts attacking it, allowing them to escape from there. They find John and Malcolm outside, and together they leave the island, while Alan tells John that he won't endorse his park, and this time John agrees that it's too dangerous. A few years after the destruction of John's Jurassic Park, the story shifts to Isla Sorna, 7 miles from Isla Nublar. A family is enjoying their vacation when their daughter discovers a small dinosaur which she finds cute, but the entire pack of dinosaurs suddenly attacks her. The scene shifts to Malcolm arriving at John's house, where he meets Tim and Lex, so he asks if everything is alright since their grandfather invited him there. They tell him that things aren't good, and Malcolm meets John's nephew Peter, who has taken over the company. Malcolm says that he may have convinced the newspapers with his lies, but he was on the island, so he knows what happened there. Peter reminds him of the NDA they all signed before going there, preventing them from speaking publicly about what they saw. Peter threatens him with the consequences he has faced for speaking against them, but Malcolm still believes he did nothing wrong as he just told the truth. Peter tells him that everyone will soon forget things, and their company engine will continue progressing. Malcolm meets John, who accepts that he was wrong, and he has realized it because of Site B, where the dinosaurs were raised in their initial months, until they were old enough to be moved to Isla Nublar. He reveals that after Hurricane Clarissa wiped out their facility on Site B, they were forced to abandon the island, leaving the dinosaurs on their own, but just as Malcolm believed, life found a way. as the dinosaurs are living independently. He explains that he has kept it safe from human intervention, and Malcolm agrees they shouldn't be disturbed, but he wonders why they didn't die since all dinosaurs need supplementary enzymes to survive. John tells him that he doesn't know how they are living, which is why he wants them to go and investigate. He explains that according to the satellite images, the carnivores are in the inner regions of the island, so they can go to the outer region and document their findings. John tells Malcolm about the recent incident where a little girl was injured, and how the board used it as an excuse to seize control of the company from him. He suggests Malcolm should go there, but he rejects it and declares that he will stop the others from going there as well. John tells him that his ex-girlfriend Sarah contacted him, and she is already on that island, which makes Malcolm angry since he has no other option but to go and save her. Malcolm gets ready to go and he meets Eddie, who isn't happy that Malcolm is rushing things 3 days ahead of the original plan, so he won't have time to even test the equipment. John asks if they have contacted Sarah, but unfortunately they are unable to contact her as the satellite phone isn't working. They meet the photographer Nick, who is also part of the mission, and Malcolm's daughter Kelly suddenly arrives there. Malcolm tells her to stay with his friend while he is gone, but she insists on coming with him, which he rejects as he finds it dangerous. They soon leave for their mission, but the boat captain drops them on the shore and immediately leaves as he considers the place dangerous. After landing on the island, they try to locate Sarah using the GPS on her satellite phone, and they soon find her backpack. Malcolm worries for her as he notices a hole in the bag, so they start shouting her name, but they soon see the Stegosaurus, which surprises Nick and Eddie. They start taking pictures, and coincidentally, Sarah is doing the same. She notices Nick, but she is surprised that Malcolm is also there, as she never expected he would come there. She tells them that she has figured out how the dinosaurs are surviving without the lysine enzyme because the herbivores feed on plants rich in lysine and the carnivores eat them. She goes to a baby dinosaur and she pets it, which scares Malcolm as he knows how dangerous they can be, while the rest of the team is just stunned to see them. She runs out of film and her camera's noise startles the baby dinosaur, so its parents come to defend it, forcing Sarah to hide for safety. Malcolm thinks she shouldn't have come there, but she wants to prove the scientists wrong, who think dinosaurs are vicious lizards and the T-Rex would abandon its baby at the first chance it gets. They notice that there is smoke coming from their camp, so they rush towards it, and Sarah tells them to use dirt instead of water to put it out, otherwise they will attract the animals. Malcolm wonders who started it, and Kelly comes out with a pan saying she wanted to prepare dinner for them. Malcolm decides to send her back and he asks if anyone else wishes to return, but he can't contact the boat, so he goes to the RV to try the main radio. Sarah assures him that she is happy that he came to rescue her, but she wishes he would do it more often when they are in the city, as he often bails out on their plans. She tells him to go as she has everything planned, but Kelly suddenly hears a sound and they see several helicopters coming to the island. Malcolm feels happy as he can send his daughter back, but Eddie notices that these helicopters belong to Ingen and they can't understand why John would send 2 teams. After landing, Peter thinks they should set up a camp, but his expert hunter Ronald tells him it's dangerous. He confidently asserts that he has more experience in hunting, so he will be leading them, and in his absence it will be Dieter. He also mentions that he doesn't need any payment, and all he wants in exchange for his service is the right to hunt a male Tyrannosaurus. He warns Peter that if he doesn't like any of these conditions, he can establish camp wherever he wishes, but if he wants him to lead them, he must do things his way. Peter accepts his offer and cancels the plan to establish camp there, searching for a better location instead. They soon see a herd of dinosaurs, and based on Ronald's plan, they break a stray dinosaur from the herd and capture it. While Malcolm and the others document the scene after that, Peter helps them capture an adult Parasaurolophus, which makes Malcolm and the others very emotional. A little later, Ronald notices a Tyrannosaurus's footprint, so he gets ready to hunt it. Peter wonders where they are going, and Ronald explains he is going to collect his payment. After a long search, Ronald and AJ find the baby Tyrannosaurus, and Ronald thinks that with an offspring that young, the parents won't leave it alone for long. He knows they can't stay there without alerting the parents, so he takes the baby Tyrannosaurus and chains it in the open where its parents can hear its cry for help. Malcolm and the others see Peter's base, and they realize John sent them in a hurry because he knew Peter and his men were coming. Nick tells them that John mentioned they might show up, so he knows what to do next. Meanwhile, Peter presents the dinosaurs he has captured to the investors, trying to persuade them to support his idea of plans to open a dinosaur zoo in San Diego. On the other hand, Sarah and Nick free the captured dinosaurs, who create chaos, setting the camp on fire. Ronald returns and he isn't happy with how Peter handled things in his absence. He sees a broken lock and he realizes they aren't alone on the island. Nick frees the baby Tyrannosaurus, saying it has an injured leg, but Sarah finds it extremely dangerous. Meanwhile, Malcolm tries to contact the boat, but he can't remember the right frequency. Sarah brings the baby dinosaur and she requests Malcolm not to be angry at them. She begins inspecting it, and she realizes that if they don't help it, the baby won't survive. It makes noise, which scares Kelly that it might attract the other animals' attention, so she asks Malcolm to take them someplace safe, and she regrets her decision to come here. Malcolm takes her to the top, but he hears a dinosaur roar and tries to communicate with Sarah, but they are busy with the operation and don't pick up the call, so he is forced to go and alert them. He rushes to the RV and tries to take the baby dinosaur out, but Sarah stops him, saying she just set its leg. They see a vehicle being tossed by a T-Rex, and Malcolm realizes the parents have come. The T-Rex surrounds the RV, and Sarah thinks they are just searching for their child, so they carefully return it. Malcolm contacts Eddie, and he confirms that the dinosaur is leaving for the jungle. Sarah thinks it all proves her hypothesis that even dinosaurs have parental feelings, but Malcolm suddenly notices the dinosaur coming toward them, so he tells them to get ready for impact. The T-Rex turns over their RV and tries to push it off the cliff, which almost kills Sarah, but Nick and Malcolm save her.
Sarah.
Eddie ties a steel cable to the RV, and after some issues he finally manages to save them from falling down. But the dinosaurs arrive, noticing the disturbance. They start ripping apart the Jeep, and Eddie tries to shoot them, but his gun gets stuck, so they brutally tear him apart before eating him. Sarah and the others are rescued by Peter's men, and Ronald blames them for destroying their equipment, because of which they are all stuck there. Nick gets in an argument with them, but Sarah tells them to stop because by moving the baby Rex to their camp they have changed the adults' perceived territory. So now they are defending this entire area, which means they must move. Peter tells them that they have a communication center near the old operations building, which is about a day's walk from there, and since it runs on geothermal power it should be working, but the only problem is that they will be passing through the Velociraptor's territory. Sarah thinks the Rexes might attack them as well if they perceive they are a threat to them or their infant. However, Ronald believes they have already been fed, so they won't be looking for food. Malcolm doesn't like his tone, as he thinks they should be more respectful to Eddie, as he lost his life to save theirs. On their way, Nick asks Ronald why he is here, so he mentions he wants to hunt the Tyrannosaurus, which Nick doesn't understand, so he explains it is the only way for him to truly feel alive. Malcolm mocks Peter for his stupid idea to take the dinosaurs off the island, and he believes Peter will soon learn his lesson. After walking for the night, they decide to camp at a place, but one man accidentally gets lost. While trying to find the rest of the group, he trips and falls to the ground, where several small dinosaurs ambush him. He manages to push them off, but there are too many for him to handle, and they eat him. As the rest of the group realizes they have lost a member, Ronald decides to look for him, urging them to continue moving till they reach the ridge where they should wait for him. Before leaving, he tells Sarah that they shouldn't tell Kelly, as it might scare her. At night, Ronald returns to the group saying that their fellow is dead, as they found his remains. He tells them that reaching the operation building won't be easy, as it's a downward hike. While everyone sleeps, Malcolm and Sarah notice the tremors as if something big is moving towards them. Sarah turns off the light in her tent as she notices a Tyrannosaurus outside, but it enters the tent, which scares Kelly, and Sarah immediately covers her mouth. One of the men wakes up and he shouts, creating panic, and everyone starts running while Malcolm asks them not to move. Ronald tries to shoot it down, but his gun doesn't fire, so he learns that someone has emptied the cartridges. Everyone runs to save their lives, while Peter loads a strong veterinary tranquilizer to shoot at one of the Tyrannosaurus, but it has no effect, so he shoots another one at it. The group reaches a waterfall, and they try to hide in the narrow gap where it can't reach them, but a snake enters a man's shirt, so he starts moving, which allows it to eat him. After getting fed, the dinosaur leaves and they all try to escape from there, but Ajay warns them against entering the long grass. However, no one follows his warning. The velociraptors hiding there attack them and kill most of the group, including Ajay. Malcolm and his team find Ajay's bag, and he realizes there are velociraptors in that region, so he tells everyone to run as fast as they can. Luckily, they make it out of there, but they slip to the ground where Nick sees some skeletal remains. Nick realizes Malcolm is injured, so he volunteers to go to the communication center in the operations center, so he can make the radio call for help. He soon finds the radio in the abandoned communication building, and he calls the base for an immediate rescue mission, as they have suffered lots of casualties. Malcolm and the others also arrive there, and they call his name but hear no response. Sarah suddenly gets attacked by a velociraptor, but it gets distracted by her bag, so she abandons it. Soon, more velociraptors reach there. So Malcolm tells Sarah and Kelly to go inside while he distracts them. Malcolm tries to hide in a room, but the velociraptor breaks the glass window, so he tries to hide in a car, but it starts hitting its window. Meanwhile, Sarah and Kelly dig the ground so they can get out from the other side, but as she tries to send Kelly, a velociraptor appears there as well, so they start climbing to the top. Malcolm realizes the dinosaur has almost reached him, so he too rushes toward Sarah and Kelly as he sees the velociraptor has left the door. They warn him about the other velociraptor, and unfortunately it comes in front of him, stopping him from going to them. Kelly realizes he is injured and he can't fight it alone, so she uses her gymnastic skills to kick the velociraptor out of there. Sarah notices the other dinosaurs are coming, so she tells them to run out of there, and she climbs to the top, from where she jumps to the next rooftop. The velociraptor follows her there, and she almost slips to the ground where another dinosaur is already waiting for her. She makes it fall, and the two velociraptors start fighting each other, allowing her to escape from there. Luckily, the rescue squad arrives in a helicopter, and Nick calls them to rush, so they all leave. Meanwhile, the other rescue team reaches Ronald and Peter, who have caught the male Tyrannosaurus and its infant. Peter is happy that they will take the dinosaurs back to San Diego, but Ronald is sad as Ajay couldn't make it. Peter offers him a job at their new park, but Ronald declines it, saying he has spent enough time in the company of death. Sarah and the others notice Peter's team taking the Tyrannosaurus, which breaks their hearts. They soon reach the city, where Peter holds a press conference to inform everyone how he is going to fulfill John Hammond's dream. He gets interrupted as the ship has almost arrived, which surprises him as it's early. He goes to the control room, and they try to contact the ship, asking the captain to slow it down, but they are unable to reach him. The ship continues speeding toward them, and it crashes into the dock, where they see that everyone on the ship is dead. Malcolm notices a dead man holding the cargo lock, and Peter asks them to check the cargo, so a guard opens it, which frees the Tyrannosaurus. As the Tyrannosaurus attacks everyone, Malcolm tells Peter that he has finally become John Hammond. The dinosaur scream puts everyone's heart in fear, and Sarah wonders why it wasn't tranquilized, so the staff explains that they gave it 2 darts of carfentanil, but she thinks that was too much dosage, so he replies that it stopped breathing, so they gave it naltrexone to counteract, but they didn't know how much to give. Sarah thinks it was all reckless, and Malcolm inquires if they have the infant on the ship, but he is told that it was brought on a plane. Sarah asked Peter if they have the infant, and he mentions it's safe. She informs Malcolm that right now the dinosaur is dehydrated, so it will look for water, but after that it will look for its infant. She thinks they must bring the infant to the dock, as all the equipment to stop it is here. The T-Rex goes to a house where it drinks water from the pool, while Sarah and Malcolm rush to the facility to grab the infant. They grab the sedated baby dinosaur, and Sarah wonders how they will find the adult, so Malcolm tells her that they will just follow the screams. The adult Tyrannosaurus notices its baby, and it follows them to the dock, while Peter orders his men to shoot the adult, as he wishes to keep the baby alive. He notices Malcolm and Sarah taking the infant, so he chases after them, but they leave it in the cargo lock and jump into the water. Peter follows it down, but the adult arrives, and it injures Peter before the infant finishes him. Sarah shoots the adult Tyrannosaurus with a tranquilizer before Malcolm completely seals the cargo hold. The news broadcast speaks on how the ship is taking the Tyrannosaurus and its baby back to Isla Sorna under the escort of Navy ships, making sure they don't repeat the same mistakes. The news then shows John Hammond's interview, where he says their government should work with the Costa Rican Department of Biological Preserves to make sure they preserve and keep the island safe from human intervention, since he believes these creatures don't need humans to survive.
Life will find a way.
Jurassic Park III begins near Isla Sorna, where a boy named Eric is on a boat with Ben and a few other men. Eric excitedly gets ready for parasailing. However, because of unexpected dense mist, the boat becomes invisible for a while. And when it reappears, Eric notices that both the captains have disappeared. Eric panics as the boat is about to crash.
We're gonna crash! All right, no we're not.
So Ben detaches the rope from the boat, causing them to land on Isla Sorna, the island inhabited exclusively by dinosaurs. On the other hand, Alan Grant is telling a famous paleontologist Ellie's 3-year-old son named Charlie the difference between carnivorous and herbivorous dinosaurs when Ellie walks in and asks him to wait till Charlie is at least 5 years old. Ellie's husband Mark joins them, and Ellie explains that Mark now works in the State Department. Later at dinner, Alan tells Ellie that he has been working on raptors, and he reveals that the theories they made about raptors being intellectually advanced were not even close, as he did cranial scans of fossils and found a small resonating chamber. Ellie is fascinated that they were correct about raptors being able to vocalize, but Alan relates it to them being able to socialize, talk to each other, and coordinate their attacks, so the prey has no chance of survival. Alan claims that they are smarter than whales or dolphins, and before Alan leaves, Ellie assures him that she is always here if he needs any help. Later, Alan holds a conference of archaeologists, where he says that after studying multiple specimens they were able to determine a relation between the upper palate and the larynx, which led them to theorize the vocalization of raptors. He explains that if cataclysmic events hadn't erased them, they would have been the dominant species on Earth instead of humans. He asked for questions, refusing to take any related to Jurassic Park and the San Diego incident. So a man calls Alan's theory useless, claiming that once the UN decides how to handle the Isla Sorna, the scientists will go and check these facts. but Alan denies dinosaurs being alive, saying that all that is left of them is in the rocks. He calls out Ingen and Hammond for creating genetically engineered theme park monsters, saying that no force on Earth can get him on Isla Sorna. In Fort Peck Lake, a team of paleontologists is working on a fossil when Alan arrives and tells Billy that they are running low on funds, so they must soon pack up. But Billy tells him they'll have to leave even earlier as he rented some equipment. Billy shows him a prototype of the raptor's resonating chamber, made using a 3D printer, saying that with it anyone can make the sounds of a velociraptor. As they are discussing this, Kirby from the Kirby Enterprises shows up, asking Alan to join him for dinner as he has a proposition for him. Later at dinner, Kirby tells Alan that he and his wife Amanda are adventurers, and for their wedding anniversary this year, they want to fly over Isla Sorna, requesting Alan to be their guide. Alan initially refuses but accepts the offer when Kirby promises to fund his research. A few days later, they head out to the island with the couple and their team. The couple had told Alan that they had gotten permission. However, the pilot named Nash turns off the radio when it calls them an unidentified plane reaching close to the island. Alan is fascinated by the sight of alive dinosaurs and starts explaining which dinosaur is where, but the Kirbys aren't interested and tell the pilot to land the plane. Alan quickly protests against the idea, so Kirby's mercenary named Cooper knocks him out. When Alan wakes up, Billy tells him that it seems like the couple is looking for someone as they repeatedly shout for Ben and Eric. Nash, Udesky, and Cooper load their guns to make the area safe, and Alan tells them they need to head back as there is no such thing as safety on this island. He notices Amanda using a speaker to call out for Eric, and Alan quickly urges her to stop, but she doesn't listen, and they hear a roar of what Billy believes is a Tyrannosaurus. However, Alan thinks it's an even bigger dinosaur. The mercenaries come running, asking everyone to get back on the plane, leaving Cooper behind. They start the aircraft when Cooper comes in front of it, but now there is no time to stop. Just then, a Spinosaurus comes to eat Cooper, but gets run over by the plane, causing the aircraft to crash land into the woods. While the pilot tries to send a signal through a satellite phone, Alan notices that they're stuck on top of a tree and haven't landed on the ground. Suddenly, Amanda notices a predator peeking through the windshield and screams for help. Kirby tells her to calm down, but it gobbles up Nash, which causes the plane to fall from the treetop and roll till it hits another tree. The Spinosaurus tries to eliminate its prey, destroying what remains of the aircraft. But the survivors manage to escape and hide in the forest. After losing the Spinosaurus, they find a place to settle, but they come across a T-Rex and Alan quickly orders everyone to stay still. However, they flee once the T-Rex roars. The T-Rex chases them and eventually comes across the Spinosaurus, and both get into a fierce battle, from which the Spinosaurus emerges victorious. The team takes this opportunity to escape and finally find shelter. Alan confronts why the Kirbys did this, and they reveal that they lost their son here 8 weeks ago. So they did everything in their power to get him back, but the Costa Rican government and the US Embassy told them to accept the inevitable. They reveal that they divorced a year ago, and Kirby brought Alan here because he confused Alan's book Isla Nublar with Isla Sorna, thinking Alan had visited the island before. Alan tells Billy to get back to the aircraft and see if they can make it work somehow. But Kirby and Amanda refuse to leave without Ben, so Alan gives them a choice, to go look for him alone, or stick with them till they find a way, saying that the chances of getting off this island alive are low. They decide to follow Alan, as he knows the most about the dinosaurs. Soon, Alan and Billy realize that Kirby had lied about all the adventures and can't fund them as Kirby owns a tiles and toiletries business. Amanda wants to look for Eric, and she doesn't like how Kirby listens to Alan's advice, so the ex-couple gets into banter. They eventually come across the parachute, which has Eric's life jacket and camera nearby. They watch the last video Eric filmed of parasailing and landing on the island, and it sparks a hope that he might be alive. Alan and Billy pull the parachute, which causes Amanda to panic as she comes across Ben's skeleton. Feeling terrified, she runs deep into the forest and Kirby rushes after her to comfort her. However, Amanda finds a lot of dinosaur eggs and calls Alan, who realizes there are raptors nearby and leads the group far away, but he notices Billy has been left behind, so he goes to check on him. Billy says that he was photographing the eggs, and Alan tells him to keep pace with the group. After walking for a while, they spot a campsite and Kirby rushes there, thinking Eric must be hiding there. As they head inside, they find the abandoned laboratory, where dinosaur eggs were hatched and even hatchlings are still in incubators. Amanda is observing the entire place when suddenly a dinosaur moves, causing everyone to run. Eventually, Amanda and Billy trap the raptor in a cage, and it starts to make a characteristic sound which Alan quickly recognizes as the raptor calling for help. They run out of the campsite, but the raptor escapes as well and now loudly makes the same sounds. Alan orders everyone to rush into the herd of the dinosaurs, but the herd suddenly changes direction towards the raptor, causing a fear of being trampled in the group, so Alan orders everyone to head to the trees. Kirby and Amanda climb trees to hide, but Udesky doesn't make it in time and shouts miserably while a dinosaur inserts its claws into him. Udesky's dead body lies there, making Amanda think he might still be alive, and she slips while trying to climb down the tree. Suddenly, two raptors try to eat her, but Billy and Kirby rescue her, and Billy notices that the raptors are using Udesky's dead body as bait. Meanwhile, Alan hides in the roots of a tree observing the behavior of raptors. When Alan thinks the danger has passed, he stands up only to be surrounded by 4 raptors. Suddenly, gas shells are dropped, which cause the raptors to run away while a boy rescues Alan to safety. Alan thanks him, and Eric is shocked that Alan knows him. Alan explains that his parents are looking for him, and Eric recognizes Alan as well. Fascinated, he tells Alan that he has read both of his books. Eric explains he took most of the stuff Ingen left behind, but there were no weapons, and he is now out of gas grenades as well. They discuss books all night while Amanda mentions how Kirby would have kept Eric safe, and they bond while comforting each other. The next morning, both parties decide to head to the coast as that is their best chance at survival. Eric explains that he stayed close to the campsite because he believed the rescue team would come there. Eric is unsure about going to the coast, saying the dinosaurs get bigger near the coast, but Alan explains that the coast is their only way out. Suddenly, Eric hears his father's satellite phone and rushes there, shouting for his parents, who run towards his voice.
Hey!
They have an emotional reunion while Alan looks for ways to cross the large gate and get to the other side. Eric says he heard the satellite phone, but Kirby tells him that he doesn't have it, as he loaned it to Nash, who was eaten by a Spinosaurus. Suddenly, they hear the satellite phone again, but this time from the Spinosaurus, so they quickly run, and Eric finds a small gap through which he and Alan pass to the other side, trapping the Spinosaurus within the gates. However, it easily breaks the gates, and the group rushes inside a sturdy building to hide. Inside, Billy asks Alan to give back the bag he picked up on the way, suggesting it's not safe, so Alan opens the bag to find out that Billy stole raptor eggs. Billy says he did it with good intentions, hoping it would get them funds for research, but Alan angrily says that Billy is as selfish as the people who built this place. Alan thinks of throwing the eggs, but decides to take them with him on the journey with the hope of returning them to the raptors if they show up again. To head to the boat on the coast, the group has to pass a fragile bridge and decide to do it one after another. Alan is the first one to cross and signals the next person to come, and Amanda calls for Eric after crossing the bridge. However, as Eric is crossing, a pteranodon takes Eric to its nest to feed him to its children, making Eric scream. He throws an object at the younglings and tries to run, but the nest is too high for Eric to run anywhere.
Billy? Billy?
So Billy rescues him using the parachute and drops Eric into the river. Meanwhile, Alan and the couple get cornered by a pteranodon, and the 3 fall into the river as well. However, Billy's parachute gets stuck, causing him to hit the rocks and get surrounded by pterodons. The group manages to reach the other side of the river, and Alan goes back for Billy but notices him badly trapped by many pterodons and backs off. The group manages to pass the gates that hold the dinosaurs back and get to the boat, starting to row it towards the coast. However, Amanda accidentally doesn't close the gate of the pteranodon's cage tightly enough, while Alan mourns Billy's death. Eventually, their boat reaches the area of herbivorous dinosaurs, and Eric is fascinated by them. After a day of travel, they suddenly hear the satellite phone again, and Alan urges them to find the phone before it stops ringing. They find it, but it is just an automated commercial call.
Hello?
In beautiful Guadalajara, enjoy a meal in one.
So they get back on their journey and realize that they have enough battery for one call. Kirby tells Alan not to call the US Embassy as they won't do a thing, so Alan calls Ellie, but Charlie picks up and the group gets attacked by the Spinosaurus, so they lock themselves in a cage for protection. Ellie calls the satellite phone back, and Alan is only able to say, "The river."
The river! Save me!
Before their cage falls into the river, causing them all to sink with it. However, Kirby escapes, so he uses himself as a pawn to give the others enough time to run. In the cage, Alan finds a flare and uses it to spark up a fire, which scares off the dinosaur. But in the chaos, Kirby falls into the river. His family fears the worst, thinking he's drowned. But they're overwhelmed with relief when they see him alive. After resting a bit, they head towards the ocean, but they get attacked by raptors, and Alan quickly realizes they just want their eggs back. The raptor sniffs Amanda, and she asks Alan to hand her the eggs, which she returns. Alan also finds the prototype of the raptor's larynx in Billy's bag, and he uses it to confuse the pack. Upon hearing the helicopters, the raptors take the eggs and leave. Ellie calls in the US Marines and Navy, who land on the beach and save the survivors. They learn on a plane that Billy suffered many injuries, but was rescued. As they depart the island, they see the now freed pterodons flying along with them. Jurassic World begins with a woman named Karen, who comes to see off her 2 sons, Zach and Gray, at the airport, but she gets emotional. After the flight, the boys take a ship that takes them to the new dinosaur theme park on the island of Isla Nublar, where their Aunt Claire Deering is the operations manager. They soon reach their destination, where they are greeted by Claire's assistant Zara, who is supposed to look after them. They enter the Jurassic World, and Gray is fascinated by everything around while Zara takes them to their room and asks them to slow down, as Claire will only be able to meet them at 1 o'clock. Zara explains that they have VIP access, which allows them to get on rides without waiting in line, but Gray isn't listening as he is too excited to explore the park. Meanwhile, Claire deals with the bureaucracy of the place and explains that while their yearly revenue is increasing, people aren't impressed by the sight of dinosaurs anymore, as de-extinction seemed magical 20 years ago, but now kids look at a stegosaurus like they are looking at an elephant. She claims that to counter this, their DNA excavators discover new species every year, but the visitors want them to be fiercer, so their advances in gene splicing allow them to build new creatures. Claire asks what the sponsors are hoping to see as they've approached her with interest in funding a new attraction. They say that they are looking for something thrilling, and in response she introduces them to the Indominus Rex, the park's first genetically engineered hybrid, which is designed to reach 50 feet in height when fully grown. She notes that every time a new attraction is added, park attendance spikes and the sponsors are visibly impressed. Meanwhile, the boys head to the Innovation Center, where they are greeted by Claire. She gives them a pass for food, and the kids are disappointed that she won't be joining them for the day, so Claire promises to spend more time with them the next day. Claire goes to the control room, where all visitors and animals are monitored, and one of the employees named Lowry discusses how the first park was better because they didn't have to genetically modify the animals there. Claire notices a red zone, but the employees quickly explain that a dinosaur got out of control and was tranquilized by the guards, so they are currently removing it. After that, Claire goes to meet Simon Masrani, the CEO of the Masrani Corporation and the owner of Jurassic World, and while they fly to Paddock 11 to see the Indominus Rex, Simon tells Claire not to worry about the cost, as they built this park to remind the world about how small humans are. Upon reaching the area, Claire explains that the Indominus Rex is far bigger than they expected. Other than that, it is intelligent, as it realized where the food came from in only a few days and even tried to break the glass to free itself. Simon is fascinated by it and claims it will give even the parents nightmares. He wonders what happened to the Indominus Rex's sibling, which was engineered in case this one didn't survive infancy, and Claire reveals that this one devoured the other. He informs her about a Navy veteran and ethologist named Owen Grady, who trains intelligent dinosaurs, and tells Claire to make him examine the paddock. Meanwhile, Owen has been training a velociraptor squad composed of Blue, Charlie, Delta, and Echo for a long time and researching their intelligence. He commands them, and they follow him, as they've grown attached to him, and he feeds them as a reward, earning celebration from everyone around him. Vic Hoskins praises Owen, but then asks him to take the velociraptors to the battlefield, wanting to weaponize them. He explains that they will defeat the enemy easily, and if they rebel, they will be terminated, so only loyal bloodlines remain. Owen and his assistant Barry are uninterested in the offer, but Hoskins insists, saying that war is a part of nature. Suddenly, a pig breaks loose and a man tries to grab it but accidentally falls into the path of the raptors, causing Owen to quickly jump in and barely control the dinosaurs.
Hey! What did I just say? Good. Okay. Close the gate.
Meanwhile, the brothers explore the park, and Zach notices that Zara is busy on a call, so he quickly tells Gray to run. They evade Zara, and eventually Karen calls them, only to find out that Claire isn't with them. Karen then calls Claire, who explains that she had a lot of meetings today, which makes Karen cry as she tells Claire that Zach can't take care of Gray alone, and Claire promises to spend the entire next day with them. Claire heads to Owen and asks him to examine the paddock, telling him to focus on the assets, which makes Owen rebuke her, saying that the dinosaurs aren't assets but alive animals. She doesn't pay him much attention and tells him that she will be waiting in the car. Meanwhile, the brothers enjoy the show where a mosasaurus comes out of the water to eat a large fish, splashing the audience with water. The host then announces that the spectators will move underwater to get a closer look, and even Zach is fascinated. Back at the paddock, Owen warns Claire that the Indominus Rex lacks social skills, making it dangerous and unpredictable. However, even after serving food as bait, the animal doesn't show up, which makes Claire check for thermal signals and eventually realize that the Indominus has escaped by climbing the 40-foot wall, as it has scratches all over it. Claire panics and quickly calls the control room to find out about the location of the Indominus, only for them to report that it's still in the cage. However, they warn her that 3 people are in the cage as well, and quickly tell them to evacuate. The Indominus Rex manages to eat one guard, while the other opens the gates to escape, and Simon, who is monitoring the entire scene, quickly orders Lowry to close the gate. Lowry hits the close button, and Owen barely makes it out of the gate, but unfortunately the Indominus also escapes by breaking the wall. The Indominus devours the other guard, while Owen hides under a car and pours petrol all over himself. So the Indominus doesn't detect him despite having a powerful sense of smell. Back in the control room, Simon orders them to let the Asset Containment Unit, ACU, capture it quietly, so no one else gets hurt. Barry gets a notification alerting him to the escape of the asset, which makes him shift his attention to protection, and this allows Hoskins to use foul play. Meanwhile, Gray tells Zach that their parents might be getting a divorce as he found them getting mail from different lawyers, but Zach tells him not to worry, promising that everything will be okay. On the other hand, Owen reaches the control room and angrily tells them that the Indominus Rex has exceptional intelligence, as it marked the wall to fool them into thinking it had escaped. An employee reports that the ACU has reached the Indominus, and everyone's attention shifts to the camera, which makes Owen realize that they are using non-lethal weapons against the dinosaur, causing him to protest. Simon refuses, saying they've invested $26 million, and Owen urges them to call the mission off, intending to save the ACU from a miserable death. But Claire tells him he is not in control here. The ACU finds the implant on the floor, making Owen realize that it clawed the tracking implant out of its body. The Indominus Rex, hiding in camouflage, comes out and kills the entire team. Owen warns them to evacuate the island, but Claire fears that they'll never reopen if it happens. Owen explains that the Indominus Rex has lived its entire life in captivity, so it is scared and will kill everything that moves near it as it tries to figure out where it fits in the food chain. Owen tells them to use drastic measures, but Claire refuses to turn the island into a war zone, and Owen angrily walks out while saying that the hybrid isn't a dinosaur, as the lab has created a monster. Claire orders the north zone of the park to be evacuated, but Zach and Gray, who are taking the rides, enter the restricted area before it gets closed. Meanwhile, Simon confronts Dr. Henry Wu about the genetic makeup of Indominus Rex, asking why the dinosaur can change colors for camouflage, and Henry explains that the cuttlefish gene was added so it can handle an accelerated growth rate. He attributes the ability to mask thermal sensors to frog genes and refuses to stop his work, saying he has created a predator they asked for. On the other hand, the brothers are in a gyrosphere, where a small video of Jimmy Fallon explains how well protected they are in this vehicle. Gray looks at the animals with fascination, but they suddenly get the notification to immediately return, which dampens Gray's mood. So to cheer him up, Zach suggests they stay out a few more minutes, hoping they won't get scolded because of VIP tickets. Back in the control room, Claire worries about the boys and realizes their gyrosphere is wandering off in the wrong direction and orders the guards to quickly rescue them. But the guards explain that it will take a lot of time as their hands are full. Zach, wanting to have an adventure, drives their gyrosphere into the restricted area, while Claire rushes to find Owen, telling him that she needs his help to save her nephews. In the meantime, the boys come across the Indominus Rex and get attacked, which causes the gyrosphere to roll around before flipping over. The Indominus pokes a nail inside it before biting it and shattering the glass. The vehicle is destroyed, but the boys narrowly escape the dinosaur by jumping down a waterfall. Owen and Claire arrive at the location and mourn the death of a dinosaur which is taking its last breaths, and they are shocked to see many dead dinosaurs nearby. Owen realizes that the Indominus Rex is not eating the dinosaurs but only killing them for sport. They venture deeper and find the broken gyrosphere, with Zach's phone nearby, causing Claire to break down in tears, but Owen comforts her by showing her footprints, saying that they made it out alive. They conclude that the boys must have jumped down the waterfall, and Claire begins screaming their names, prompting Owen to ask her to stop as she might attract predators. He tells Claire to go back while he looks for the kids, but she refuses, so he asks her to follow his instructions if she wants to stay alive. On the other hand, the boys find the ruins of the original Jurassic Park Visitor Center and explore it to find an old Jeep Wrangler, which they repair. Back at the control room, the employees report that the Indominus Rex is heading straight to the park because of the high thermal radiation of over 20,000 humans visiting the park. Hoskins shows up there to tell Simon that his raptors can hunt and kill the Indominus Rex, but Simon refuses to set the raptors free. However, Hoskins informs them that if the Indominus Rex reaches the public, a massacre will occur, which convinces Simon to at least consider the idea. Simon decides to hunt the Indominus Rex down, and he leaves in the helicopter with 2 mercenaries. On the other side, the boys drive the Jeep to the park, and the noise alerts Owen, who quickly rushes to the center. He tries to repair another Jeep, but before he can do anything, the Indominus Rex shows up, causing them to run. The Indominus plans to follow them, but it gets distracted by the helicopter sound, giving them enough time to escape. While Claire quickly calls her team to inform them about the Indominus's location, the 2 mercenaries open fire on the Indominus from the helicopter, but it breaks into the park's aviary, where the pterodons and dimorphodons, startled by the Indominus, flee the aviary and fly into Simon's helicopter, causing it to crash and kill all its passengers, including Simon. One of the employees, named Vivian, cries at the loss and reports the breach of the aviary. The boys approach the west gate and Zara rushes there. However, they are followed by the escaped pterosaurs who converge on the resort, attacking everyone. The visitors panic, and in a situation of chaos, Zara asks the boys not to run but gets caught by a dinosaur who drops her in water where she is devoured by the Mosasaurus. Claire and Owen, who have also reached the main park, get attacked by a pterosaur. So Claire shoots it using Owen's gun, and the kids are amazed to see their aunt in action. She notices the boys and rushes to them, checking up on them before urging them to follow her to a safe place. They are unable to find a safe space, but Owen gets them in a jeep that he parks away from the swarm of people, and the boys decide to stay with Owen till they get off the island. Meanwhile, Hoskins assumes command and tells all the control room workers to pack up as he has brought in a new team. Lowry informs Claire of this, telling her that Hoskins plans to use raptors to defeat the Indominus Rex. Owen quickly goes to the location of the raptors and punches Hoskins in the face, asking him to leave his raptors alone. Hoskins says that if Owen doesn't agree, most people on the island will die. But if he uses the raptors, the dinosaurs will be all over the news for saving so many lives. When Hoskins threatens to use the raptors with or without Owen's guidance, Owen eventually gives in and devises a plan, suggesting that they move the Indominus to a target location. As the raptors are pack hunters, he orders them all to shoot only at the Indominus, making sure no one accidentally shoots the raptors. Owen goes to pet his raptors and introduces the boys to his pack, suggesting that he is the alpha of the pack before Claire gets them in the back of a van, wanting them to be safe in all conditions. Gray worries that some dinosaur might get in here, but Zach reminds him of the time Gray used to be scared of ghosts, so he made a battle axe using a paper plate. He promises to protect him no matter what, saying they'll always come back to each other. The mission begins, and the raptors are made to smell the scent of the Indominus before being set free, so they rush towards the scent of the Indominus. Owen follows them on his bike while the boys witness the scene from the cameras attached to the raptors. The raptors begin slowing down, so the mercenaries take position, ready to shoot the Indominus upon Owen's command. But upon finding the Indominus, the dinosaurs begin communicating among themselves. Owen quickly realizes that the Indominus has Velociraptor DNA, but Hoskins orders them to open fire, so they shoot at the Indominus, but it manages to escape. Owen alerts everyone that the raptors now have a new alpha, but the raptors manage to slaughter most of the soldiers while Owen tries to go to Charlie, who gets killed in the chaos. The surviving men retreat while Blue attacks Barry, but Owen uses his motorcycle's sound to make Blue follow him. Meanwhile, Claire lies to the boys, saying that everything is fine and promises Gray to send them home tomorrow, sadly thinking of how Karen will never let the boys see her again. Suddenly, a man bangs his hand on the car window, asking them to quickly leave the place. Just as Claire starts the engine, the man opens the back of the van, and a raptor jumps after him, but falls once Claire speeds up. However, another one jumps in through the window, but Claire doesn't slow down, and it falls as well. Two raptors follow them, and Claire pushes one into a tree using the vehicle, while the boys use a non-lethal taser on the other one. Owen shows up and tells Claire to follow him to the control area. Meanwhile, Hoskins asks Henry to evacuate and take the dinosaur embryos away with him, so others won't find out about their private research. It is announced that the first ferry will arrive in 45 minutes so people can be sent to the mainland, and Vivian decides to leave, but Lowry stays behind to manage the rest of the operations. Owen and the group are on their way to the control room when they notice that the lab has been evacuated, and a deadly hybrid monster is displayed on Henry's screen. Hoskins shows up to explain that even millions of years of evolution can't compete with this weapon they want to create, which will be deadly and intelligent. But before he can complete his speech, Delta breaks in and kills him.
We're on the same side, right? I'm on your side.
Owen and the group run towards the control room, but Delta follows them, forcing them to run outside where the other two raptors meet them. Finding themselves fully cornered, Owen tries to reconnect with the raptors and restores his bond before the Indominus reappears. The battle begins with the raptors attacking the Indominus, while Owen shoots at it, but Delta and Echo are killed while Blue is knocked unconscious. Gray comments that if they want to defeat the Indominus, they will need a dinosaur with more teeth. So Claire rushes back inside the center, and Owen stands in front of the boys to protect them. Meanwhile, Claire orders Lowry to open paddock 9, which holds the T-Rex. And she uses a flare to lure it to the Indominus. She runs in front of the T-Rex and throws the flare at the Indominus, causing the dinosaurs to attack each other. And the Indominus eventually overpowers the Tyrannosaurus, but Blue regains consciousness and joins the battle. Blue and the T-Rex fight the Indominus together, gaining the upper hand while the group runs looking for a place to hide. The Indominus gets cornered at the lagoon's edge, where it is dragged underwater by the Mosasaurus. The T-Rex spares the raptor and goes away, while Owen tells Blue to be free with a nod of his head. Lowry shuts off the lights of the control room one last time before leaving. Later, when everyone reaches the mainland, Zack and Gray reunite with their parents in an emotional embrace, while Owen and Claire decide to stay together, joking that it's only for survival.
For survival.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom begins with a submarine searching the ocean to arrive at the sea gates of Isla Nublar, which used to be the site of the now-destroyed Jurassic Park. They search the ocean and after exploring for a while come upon the skeleton of Indominus Rex, from which a sample is secured and sent to the surface with a balloon, which is to be picked up by a helicopter. As they prepare to shut the gate, a gigantic shadow appears behind the submarine, after which it becomes unresponsive.
Marine 1! Confirm your route, Marine 1!
A T-Rex then ambushes the gate operator out of the bushes and chases him around as he scrambles for the ladder dangling from the helicopter. He finally gets a hold of it, but the T-Rex also latches onto the ladder and tries to crash it into the ground.
We're gonna stall! Cut it now!
The gate operator celebrates briefly as the helicopter manages to pull the ladder free of the T-Rex's fangs, only to be swallowed up by a gigantic Mosasaurus. The helicopter, however, is secure, and the crew reports the successful retrieval of the sample to their boss. 3 years later, a dormant volcano reawakens on the island, threatening the dinosaurs with a second extinction. The crisis sparks a national debate, leading a U.S. Senate committee to question whether humans should intervene. Dr. Ian Malcolm advises the committee to let the dinosaurs perish, so the natural order can be restored, whereas Claire Deering campaigns in favor of saving the dinosaurs through her Dinosaur Protection Center. The committee decides to abstain from intervening in the matter, which disappoints Claire, but her spirits are restored by an unexpected call, summoning her for a meeting with Benjamin Lockwood, the former business partner and close friend of John Hammond. At the Lockwood estate in North California, Claire is welcomed by Eli Mills, the man overseeing the operations of the Lockwood Foundation, who shows her the laboratory where John Hammond and Benjamin Lockwood achieved the great milestone of extracting dinosaur DNA from fossilized mosquitoes. He further tells her of their plan to evacuate the dinosaurs to a new island where they can live safely without any human intervention. Lockwood enters in his wheelchair and shares his ambition to save the dinosaurs for future generations. But Claire notices a young girl who runs away, and Eli reveals the girl to be Lockwood's orphaned granddaughter named Maisie. Eli then further informs Claire that they need her handprints to access the dinosaur tracking system and her expertise in catching and transporting them. He also asks her to bring Owen in on the mission to rescue Blue, the last member of a highly intelligent species of velociraptors. Sometime later, Claire finds Owen building a wooden house in the countryside, and she invites him for a drink, where she offers him the opportunity to save Blue. He firmly rejects and even advises her not to get involved with the dinosaurs again. However, she informs him that the plane for the island leaves the next day, just in case he changes his decision. At night in his trailer, he re-watches the old videos of him feeding the young raptor dinosaurs, which touches his heart. He changes his decision and surprises Claire by joining the crew, which includes Dr. Zia Rodriguez and Franklin Webb. Meanwhile, Maisie scares her caretaker named Iris by hiding in the laboratory. On the other side, Lockwood becomes nostalgic, finding Maisie to be just like her mother Charlotte while he is going through her childhood pictures in his diary. Back with the group, the plane lands at an airstrip on Isla Nublar, where they are welcomed by Ken Wheatley, a mercenary hired by Eli to help them on their mission. They quickly get into the trucks to go to the former Jurassic Park, and Franklin hopes that at least the T-Rex will be dead, but Zia explains that it might still be alive, given the better living conditions on the island. Moments later, they pull up into the deserted main square of the park, and immediately encounter a Brachiosaurus. They move onwards and arrive at the central bunkers, which Franklin manages to hack open and even accesses the tracking system to find Blue. Owen and Zia then accompany Ken and his men to Blue's last known location, where Owen gets out of the car and tracks down Blue to an upturned car in the forest. Blue jumps out of the bushes and initially doesn't recognize Owen, so he is about to attack him, but Owen manages to calm her down. Owen is about to pet Blue, but she gets hit by Ken's men with tranquilizers, prompting her to attack and kill one of them. But she gets shot in the process. Owen protests, but he is also shot by Ken with a tranquilizer, while Zia is able to bargain with Ken by warning how the velociraptor will die if she doesn't treat it. Back at the bunker, shockwaves from the volcanic eruptions hit the building, getting the mercenaries to evacuate, but Franklin and Claire get locked inside. Meanwhile, Ken calls Eli and reports that he has captured Blue, especially asking for a bonus, revealing Eli's interest only in the animal's commercial value. On the other hand, Owen, who has been left for dead, is woken up just in time by a triceratops licking his face, which makes him run for his life in his sedated state and save himself from the outpouring lava. At the bunker, Franklin manages to hack a door open. However, a baryonyx enters through it and attacks them as they try to get out of the bunker through an opening in the roof. They barely manage to escape, and when they get out, they see Owen running from the direction of the eruption, followed by a stampede of dinosaurs. Together, the trio hides behind an abandoned gyrosphere and try to get inside, but it can only house 2 people, so Owen is locked outside. They drive the gyrosphere away from the incoming eruption and the stampede, followed closely by Owen, who is swallowed up by the ash storm. The gyrosphere falls into the ocean, and because of the cracks, water enters inside, drowning them. Luckily, Owen arrives to save them, and he cracks open the door of the gyrosphere. Eventually, they swim back to the coast and see dinosaurs getting transported in helicopters. Moments later, the trio uses a vantage point to observe the port, from where the animals are getting transported. They see Ken uprooting the teeth of different dinosaurs for collection, while the rest are loaded onto the ship. When the eruption worsens, Owen and the other 2 run across the port to get on the departing ship. Franklin trips over, but Owen helps him onto a truck which is driven by Claire into the back of the ship, getting them to safety, where they blend into the crew to avoid danger. However, as they look back, they see a brachiosaurus wailing for help before it is engulfed by the ash and smoke from the eruption. Meanwhile, Eli Mills, who is tracking the ship from the office, gets a call from his secretary, informing him about the arrival of Mr. Eversole, a black market auctioneer with whom Eli is collaborating to sell off the dinosaurs for their biopharmaceutical properties. Mr. Eversole appears unimpressed, which prompts Eli to reveal the full extent of his plan. Using genetically enhanced dinosaurs for military purposes, he reveals that his geneticist, Dr. Henry Wu, will soon be able to create a man-controlled biological killing machine called the Indoraptor by combining the genes of Indominus Rex and the Velociraptor. All the while, Maisie spies on the 2 men and immediately informs her grandfather, but he dismisses her suspicions as misunderstandings, which he will resolve in the morning. Back at the ship, the trio discovers Blue in a critical condition, being nursed by Zia, who explains that she requires a blood transfusion to save her. Owen and Claire take up the task and get inside the enclosure of a tranquilized T-Rex, as it is the closest blood type to Blue. It proves to be a complicated task, as Owen is pinned against the wall by the unconscious T-Rex, forcing Claire to get on top of it and draw out its blood. However, they are unknowingly locked inside by the crew, and the commotion wakes up the T-Rex, which almost chomps down on Owen before he gets out with the help of Claire. Later at the Lockwood Mansion, Maisie sneaks into the restricted laboratories and discovers various dinosaur designs and incubators with eggs, along with a video of Owen playing with Blue on a computer. In the video, Owen explains how Blue exhibits hyper-intelligence and a greater potential for bonding compared to other raptors, and that controlling her is the key to taming the other velociraptors. All of a sudden, Henry Wu and Eli enter the lab, arguing over Blue. Dr. Wu wants her alive, whereas Eli wants quick results. Henry emphasizes that he needs Blue alive to control its genetic offspring, the Indoraptor. During all this, Maisie tries to hide, but she accidentally gets too close to a cage with a carnivorous dinosaur, which makes her scream and get caught by Eli. He locks her inside her room, to which Iris protests and also informs him that he has been summoned by Mr. Lockwood. Meanwhile, Zia and the others are able to extract the bullet from Blue and save her. Sometime later, the ship arrives at its destination, and the crew begins transporting the dinosaurs outside. The trio blends into the commotion, as Franklin is assigned the task of restraining and shifting the animals, while Claire and Owen drive the trucks carrying the animals into a storage facility in the Lockwood estate. Meanwhile, in Lockwood's bedroom, Eli is berated by Lockwood, who orders him to surrender before the law, but Eli betrays the handicapped old man and smothers him with a pillow. On the other hand, Owen and Claire are about to secretly drive off the main trail, but they get caught by Ken and his men, who lock them in a cell in the Lockwood mansion. After that, Eli visits them and explains that he's saving the creatures. He argues that he's no worse than they are, since they also exploited the dinosaurs in their own ways. Both Owen and Claire are rebellious, so he decides to eliminate them from his path forever. Meanwhile, Maisie manages to pick the lock of her room with a hanger, but she closes it again when she sees a guard keeping watch outside her room. She instead goes to the balcony and witnesses a plethora of cars arriving at the mansion carrying the potential buyers for the auction. She uses the commotion to her advantage and walks across to the ledge to Mr. Lockwood's room, but unfortunately finds him lying lifeless on his bed with his diary. She takes the diary and hides in the service lift. As she hears someone walk in, she hears Eli shout for Iris, pretending that he just discovered Lockwood's death. He then goes on to fire her, telling her she is no longer needed there, despite her pleas to stay and take care of Maisie as she did for her mother. After she leaves the room, Eli checks the service lift but finds no one there. Down below in the cell, Owen and Claire each blame themselves for the exploitation of dinosaurs as they get auctioned above by Mr. Eversole. But Owen ditches the argument and tries to find a way out. He finds it very soon in the form of a young Pachycephalosaurus in the adjacent cell, who responds to his whistle by banging its hard shell-covered head against the wall, eventually breaking through it, and then through the cell door as Owen calls for it. As they get out, Maisie sees them and tries to hide in the service lift because she is scared, but they convince her of their harmlessness and get her to join them in their escape plan. As they come up, they see Mr. Eversole and Eli unveil the Indoraptor and showcase how it can be controlled through laser signals. Although it is a prototype, buyers start bidding for it, and Eli's greed allows the bidding to proceed as the price soars to $20 million, despite Dr. Henry's reservations, who considers it a prototype not yet ready for use. Owen and Claire watch in horror as they realize that the creature can't be allowed to walk out of the building. Owen tries to find a way to stop the auction, and he comes upon the baby Pachycephalosaurus and sends it to the auction floor in the lift, causing chaos amidst the crowd as it rams into the guards. He beats the guards up before they can shoot it, bringing an end to the auction as the buyers run away in fear. He also prevents Eli from taking the Indoraptor back underground by jamming the contraption that moves the cage. All this chaos brings Ken inside to take out Owen, but he only finds the Indoraptor in its cage. He shoots it with a tranquilizer out of curiosity, but the creature remains unaffected. It suddenly falls down, prompting Ken to enter the cage to extract its tooth as a souvenir. But the Indoraptor takes him by surprise as it wakes up from its feigned unconsciousness. It eats him alive, and then barges into the lift carrying Mr. Eversole by smashing its controls with its tail to force it open. A floor below, Eli and his men surround Owen, Claire, and Maisie and order them to return her to him, which they swiftly refuse. This makes Eli reveal Maisie's true nature. She is a biological clone of Lockwood's daughter rather than his granddaughter. Before he can say anything else, the Indoraptor attacks and takes out his men. Above in the laboratory, Henry and his team evacuate all the important biological samples and eggs, and he orders Zia to extract Blue's blood for a sample. But he is attacked and sedated by Franklin in the disguise of a lab assistant. The guards surround them, but they let out Blue, who takes them out and escapes quickly before the flammable gas tanks explode from the leakage caused by the guards trying to shoot Blue. The explosion causes a leakage of hydrogen cyanide in the underground chamber, which threatens all the dinosaurs. So Franklin and Zia try to turn on the ventilation system to dissipate the gas. Meanwhile, Owen, Claire, and Maisie reach the exhibition hall with the dinosaur skeletons and exhibits, but are ambushed by the Indoraptor that chases them around the hall until they manage to turn off the lights. The rebooting of the ventilation system by Franklin turns on all the lights and makes them visible to the Indoraptor that attacks and injures Claire's leg, but is distracted by Maisie's screams and led away to another corridor where she again hides in the service lift before the raptor can get her. In the service lift, Maisie desperately travels up to her room where she hides in her bed, but the Indoraptor tracks her scent and scales the building from outside, rising to its top. After which it steadily descends on Maisie's balcony and cunningly opens up the window with its long fingers. It stealthily enters the room, stalks Maisie, and is about to grab her before Owen enters and shoots it with a machine gun. The Indoraptor drops to the ground, but to their surprise it quickly gets up, completely unharmed. It is then about to kill a flabbergasted Owen. However, Blue arrives at just the right moment and attacks the Indoraptor, causing a rough and violent fight between the two reptiles. While they are at it, Maisie guides Owen to her balcony and makes him follow her across the ledge to the roof of the mansion. However, they find no relief as the dinosaurs bring their fight outside. The Indoraptor stalks them across the sunroof over the exhibition hall, and as it is too heavy for the glass, it tries to avoid putting its weight on the glass and instead uses the metal support to tread across the roof. The Indoraptor has Owen and Maisie cornered at the end of the sunroof, but Claire arrives to their rescue and hooks the raptor's attention by making a lot of noise. She then comes up with an idea that involves using the laser gun to make the Indoraptor charge across the roof at Owen and fall down due to its weight, which the glass roof can't bear. It works very well, as the Indoraptor jumps at Owen, missing him and breaking the glass in the process. It is about to fall in and impale itself on a Triceratops skull, but it manages to pull itself back up. They are now confused about what to do, but Blue saves the day as it charges at the Indoraptor, making it fall down the roof with itself on the horns of the Triceratops skull below. Blue manages to escape unharmed from the encounter, whereas the Indoraptor is eliminated. With the Indoraptor dead, they still face the problem of the leakage of toxic gas and a damaged ventilation system, which threatens to kill the dinosaurs. So Claire opens up their cages. However, Owen's warnings make her hesitant about letting them out of the building. They thus despair at having to let them die, but are surprised by the gate suddenly opening at the hand of Maisie as she asserts that they are alive like her, so she can't let them die. Outside, as Eli is about to escape with the skeleton sample of the Indominus Rex, he and his men are subjected to a dinosaur stampede, which Eli survives by hiding under his car, but instead gets devoured by a stray T-Rex. Moments later, Blue emerges from the house and approaches Owen, who calms her down and asks her to come with him. But she decides to live a life of freedom in the wild rather than going back into a cage. Sometime later, Dr. Ian Malcolm, while testifying in front of a Senate committee, explains that the dinosaurs and their DNA now out in the open would create a new set of challenges for mankind, as it struggles to live by the side of apex predators. Later, as Owen, Claire, and Maisie drive away, they see pterodons flying in the distance while Blue arrives near a human settlement, witnessing it from a nearby mountaintop. Jurassic World Dominion begins with a large boat fishing in the Bering Sea, and as they manage to grab a large number of crabs, a mosasaurus emerges from the depths of the water to drag the entire ship down, making everyone fall into the ocean. A news channel reports that 4 years have passed since the Lockwood Estate incident that followed the volcanic eruption of Isla Nublar, and now once extinct dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals freely roam the Earth. Many deaths have been reported due to these animals, as humans are still unable to find a way to peacefully coexist with them. Although most of the big predators were captured, the rest inhabited the Big Rock National Park, and those who wandered into civilization were frightened by it and exhibited unpredictable, violent behavior. However, with the spread of dinosaurs, a black market emerged due to illegal poachers. In global efforts to control the dinosaurs, the sole collection rights are given to a company named Biosyn Genetics, whose CEO, Lewis Dodgson, established a dinosaur preserve in Italy's Dolomites, the mountain ranges, where they conduct genomics research for unique pharmaceutical properties. Some assume that governmental operations lead to massive spikes in Biosyn sales, while others are focused on rumors of a human clone that disappeared mysteriously, leading to a worldwide search. People believe that the clone was genetically identical to Lockwood's daughter named Charlotte. The report wonders if dinosaurs are the responsibility of humans or if they should be left to fend for themselves. Meanwhile, Claire Deering, Zia Rodriguez, and Franklin Webb break in to investigate illegal dinosaur breeding sites, gathering proof of animal cruelty before taking an injured Triceratops with them when the alarms start ringing. They get into a car chase, but Claire drives into the restricted area inhabited by dinosaurs, which attack the cars of the smugglers, and the group makes it out without getting caught. The next morning, Claire suggests the plan of going there again until breeding sites are eliminated. But Franklin refuses, saying that he has found a real job that will help him change things legally, and Zia agrees that Claire is taking it too far. Meanwhile, Owen Grady is in Nevada driving a herd of Parasaurolophus to safety when one of them goes off the track. Owen lassos it and ties the other end of the rope to a tree trunk before petting the dinosaur until it calms down. On the other hand, Maisie lives in hiding in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and once in a while cycles around the town, despite knowing it can endanger her life. After Lockwood passed away, Claire and Owen have been secretly raising her, so when she returns home, Claire asks Maisie if she went past the bridge, but Maisie lies, saying she didn't, and tells Claire that she can take care of herself. Claire tells her that it's okay to depend on people, but Maisie argues that she is so isolated that she isn't even allowed to meet people. Owen returns home and Maisie greets him warmly, before Claire informs him about Maisie going into town, and he promises to talk to her. Owen's trained velociraptor Blue witnesses this scene before going to an abandoned bus and bringing its asexually reproduced, genetically identical hatchling out to hunt. Later at night, Owen confronts Maisie about going into town, and she tells him that she wants freedom, but Owen firmly refuses to give her any. So Maisie angrily walks away. Claire and Owen discuss how they can't keep her trapped there forever, but at the same time they worry that people might find and exploit her. Claire explains that Maisie has been interested in Charlotte Lockwood as she was cloned from her cells and wants answers about the world. Meanwhile, Rain Delacourt, a poacher with animosity towards Owen, secretly follows him home and informs his boss that he has found Maisie along with Blue at Owen's cabin. On the other hand, in Texas, two children are tending to their family's chickens when they notice a large insect on the wooden fence. Suddenly, thousands of locusts appear from the nearby field and destroy everything in their path, including the hut where the children take shelter. News of abnormally large locusts destroying U.S. crops spreads, and Dr. Ellie Sattler is called to observe the destroyed fields. She notices that the fields that have used Biosyn seeds were left uneaten, raising suspicions that Biosyn created the insects. Meanwhile, paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant is in Utah when he is visited by Ellie, and they both catch up. Ellie tells him that both of her children are now in college, while she and Mark parted ways. Alan asks her why she came here, and she shows him a captured locust, while explaining that they're increasing exponentially, and if they're not stopped, the entire food chain will collapse. As there will be no grain to feed chickens and cattle, they conclude that the locust was genetically engineered with Cretaceous period genes and contemporary DNA. She tells him she searched for him because she plans to go to Biosyn and prove that they are making the locusts, but she needs his help. Alan initially refuses, but Ellie convinces him by saying that he is the only one she trusts. She tells him that she got an invite from their old friend, Dr. Ian Malcolm, who now works for Biosyn and wants her to see a few things at Biosyn, so Alan agrees to join her. Later, Ellie and Alan reach the U.S. Wildlife Relocation Facility in Pennsylvania, where all animals are brought before they're transferred to Biosyn. Ellie sits down to pet a Triceratops, which was rescued from an illegal breeding site in Nevada, and soon they get on the plane. Meanwhile, Maisie comes across Blue's child for the first time and names it Beta, but Blue appears to protect her child. Owen manages to calm Blue down, who runs away, so Owen decides to go find Blue's nest. He tells Maisie to go back to her room angrily after she insists on following him, So Maisie takes her bike and leaves after telling Claire that she can't keep her trapped anymore. Rain shows up with a few men and hits Blue with his car, making her fall down a cliff, and captures Beta before leaving. Owen tries to stop it, so Rain opens fire at Owen and manages to escape with Beta. On the other hand, Maisie is stopped by a woman, and when Owen reaches the scene, he finds Rain throwing Maisie's cycle into the river. Owen quickly rushes home, telling Claire that Maisie has been captured by a poacher. So Claire takes out her truck while Owen loads his gun.
Hey, no!
I am gonna get her back.
After some time at the Dangerous Species Division of the CIA, Franklin gets a call from Claire, who tells him to come out as she needs help. He goes to meet them downstairs, and after hearing the entire thing, he pulls out Rain's profile on his tablet. Franklin explains that a lot of them were hired by the CIA, and Barry, Owen's past assistant, is now undercover with Rain's team. Franklin explains that they are planning a bust in Malta to capture the poachers, and after that, they can ask Barry about Maisie. However, Franklin tells them not to barge in and ruin things, as the law will take care of it. Meanwhile, Alan and Ellie reach the Dolomites, where they are greeted by the communications director, Ramsey Cole, who moves them to another aircraft and tells them that they've made this place a haven for 20 different species. They pass over various areas and are fascinated by the sight of a dreadnoughtus. He explains that the dinosaurs are fitted with implants that herd them to safety in case of an emergency. They finally reach the facility, where they are surprised to meet Lewis Dodgson, who quickly takes a picture with them. Lewis explains that they are very close to unlocking the true power of a genome, but he seems anxious, leaving the visitors confused. They reach Dr. Malcolm's lecture hall and realize he is very popular among students as they gather around him to ask for autographs. Malcolm waves them off so he can go to Ellie and greet them, but when Ellie brings up the destruction the locusts are causing, Malcolm doesn't seem to care. Alan gets frustrated and asks Malcolm to care about it, but Malcolm refuses to make any comment until he finds a spot hidden from the camera and whispers to Ellie that she is correct about Biosyn's intention related to the locusts, as they are part of a larger project called Hexapod Allies. She explains that with the rate they are multiplying, a global ecological collapse will occur. Malcolm gives her a pass, telling her to go down to sublevel 6 and find the lab labeled L4, as that is where they keep the locusts. Meanwhile, Lewis goes to the lab where Dr. Henry Wu urges him to eradicate the locusts they released, as they are causing mass destruction, which will lead to global famine. But Lewis doesn't listen. Instead, Lewis tells Henry that Maisie and Beta are on the way to the lab, and he praises Henry for knowing that Blue will reproduce asexually. Lewis explains that if anyone traces locusts to Biosyn, they will know about the dinosaurs they are working on, which will ruin everything they've worked for. Lewis calls Soyona Santos, the woman who ordered Rain to abduct Maisie and Beta, and she rebukes Lewis for reaching out to her. She explains that she flew Beta and Maisie in separate planes and demands payment before handing them over to him. Beta is taken into a car, and the mercenary who flew Beta looks at Maisie in wonder. Owen and Claire meet Barry in Malta, who explains that Santos is a broker in the underground dinosaur trade, and almost all dinosaurs pass through Malta before going to other locations. He takes them to a trade center where various people gather around dinosaurs for sale, and there Claire meets the mercenary named Kayla Watts, who flew Beta, and asks her if she knows anything about Maisie by showing her a picture. But Kayla refuses to help, saying she can't get involved. Barry and Owen head outside and notice Rain entering the trade center, which marks the start of their mission. The mercenaries position themselves to surround the center and spy on Rain, who goes to meet Santos. But Santos offers them a new job of flying Atrociraptors to Riyadh. She explains that these Atrociraptors are so loyal that if she marks anyone as a target with a laser, they hunt it down till they kill it. Observing the situation makes Claire realize there is no sign of Maisie or Beta nearby, so the police reveal themselves, but Santos's men take out guns, which gives Santos and Rain enough time to run. However, the truck carrying Atrociraptors manages its way out, but the CIA has spread spikes on the road that make the truck crash in the market. Rain, while running from Owen, shoots random places, causing the dinosaurs to come out of their cages. When Rain tries to escape, Owen drags him into a fighting ring where a physical fight ensues, but Owen soon gains the upper hand and asks him where Maisie is.
Where is she? I don't know!
Rain tells him that he doesn't know, as he only handed her over to Santos, but before he can finish the explanation, another dinosaur breaks free and eats Rain. Owen tells Claire that Santos is the one who has Maisie, but Santos orders the Atrociraptors to be released and points at the CIA officers, making the dinosaurs attack them. Claire runs after Santos as she lures Claire into a house before starting to throw random things at her. Claire electrocutes Santos, who eventually reveals that they're taking Maisie to Biosyn, but her flight has already left. An Atrociraptor bursts into that house and Santos marks Claire as its target before running away. Claire rushes out, jumping off the building, but the Atrociraptor follows her till she falls down a building into a van. Surprisingly, Kayla gets in the driver's seat and asks Claire to hold tight before driving off at full speed. Kayla tells her that she will fly her to Maisie, so Claire asks her to take them to Biosyn. Meanwhile, Owen and Barry manage to trick the Atrociraptor, chasing Barry into a cage, but Santos shows up there and marks Owen while Barry points his gun at her. Owen heads to the airfield, but the Atrociraptors follow him. After a chaotic chase, he finally reaches the airfield, but as the plane is taking off, Owen races in on his motorcycle and leaps onto the plane. However, one of the Atrociraptors follows close behind, but it gets knocked off as Owen's bike hits it. On the other side, Ellie and Alan are shown around by Ramsey before he leaves them for 30 minutes, giving them time to explore on their own. They head to the sublevels, while Dr. Henry apologizes to Maisie for kidnapping her, before explaining that Beta is genetically identical to Blue, just as Maisie is genetically identical to Charlotte. Henry asks Maisie what she knows about Charlotte, and Maisie explains that her grandfather was devastated at the death of his daughter, so he made a replica of her. But Henry reveals that it was Charlotte who cloned Maisie. He shows her videos and elaborates that Charlotte lived on Site B with them all, and became a wonderful scientist. She was able to have a child all by herself, but Charlotte had a genetic disorder. So she altered Maisie's DNA to prevent her from inheriting the fatal disease. Dr. Henry says that if he studies Maisie, he can get insight into Charlotte's discovery on how to alter living DNA, so he will fix the locusts that are spreading. Ellie and Alan sneak into the lab and find a fully mature locust, and Ellie takes a sample from it. However, Maisie releases Beta from his cage, causing Lewis to hit an alarm that makes all the locusts start swarming. They quickly get out of the area, but Ellie screams in fear as the locusts attack them. Maisie escapes as well and rushes in the direction of the screams, only to realize that Ellie and Alan don't work for Biosyn, so the three decide to run out together. Kayla tries to enter Biosyn, but Dodgson is informed by Santos that Maisie's parents are on the flight, so he tells them to shut the airborne deterrent system, which makes a Quetzalcoatlus attack the plane. Kayla explains that only one seat can be ejected and Claire is in it. So Owen asks Claire to go save her daughter before ejecting her, while Owen and Kayla are forced to crash land. Meanwhile, Ramsey shows up while the trio is running, so they pretend as if they were lost while Maisie hides, but Ramsey tells them that he informed Malcolm about the locusts and that he has arranged a pod that will take them to the airfield, where a plane is ready to take them back to the mainland. Alan quickly asks Maisie to come with him before leaving, and she joins them. On the other hand, Claire gains consciousness in the middle of a forest and barely manages to hide from a dinosaur, while Owen and Kayla survive the crash. They encounter a dinosaur but manage to evade it. And Kayla tells Owen that there is a tracking chip on the ejection seat, so they will soon find Claire. Back at the facility, Dodgson's assistant shows him a video of the unsettled locusts and informs him that Ellie took a sample, so he quickly calls for Malcolm and Ramsey. On the other side, Ellie tells Maisie how Charlotte visited to deliver lectures at her university, and they became good friends. She explains that Charlotte had a conscience and wanted to save lives with her technology. However, Dodgson stops their pod in the middle of nowhere, forcing them to wander through the mine tunnels. Dodgson fires Malcolm, and an employee announces that a pod stopped in the amber mines, which are surrounded by dinosaurs. So Ramsey quickly asks Lewis to send help, but Lewis tells Ramsey to stay in line. Malcolm, before leaving, gives a speech on how Dodgson is racing towards the extinction of humans and is exploiting everyone. But Dodgson orders Ramsey to clean up Malcolm's space and send him back. Meanwhile, Owen and Kayla reach the ejected seat following the tracker and look around to find Claire. But a fight starts between a Giganotosaurus and T-Rex. However, both predators just growl at each other before leaving. Back in the mine, Ellie starts to panic, feeling guilty for dragging Alan into this mess, but he comforts her by saying that he wasn't happy with his monotonous life before her, and Maisie assumes they're a married couple. Meanwhile, Ramsey tells Malcolm the exit from which the trio will come out, and Malcolm drives there. The trio gets cornered by several dinosaurs, and Malcolm, who arrives just in time, doesn't know the code to open the gate, making everyone think this is the end of the trio. But Ramsey from the facility opens the gate. Ellie shows him the DNA sample, and they quickly get to the car to get out of the valley. Meanwhile, Claire finds a research center and tries to enter it, but is cornered by another dinosaur. However, Owen and Kayla rescue her, so finally the trio reunites. At the Biosyn facility, Dodgson sees notifications of the locust plague spreading to other continents and gets scared, so he attempts to incinerate the locusts to destroy evidence, but most locusts escape through an air vent while ablaze. They fall all over the area and spark a wildfire around the preserve. Because of the locusts, Malcolm's car falls down a cliff and lands near the research center, where the parents reunite with Maisie. They thank others for helping Maisie escape, but suddenly they get attacked by the Giganotosaurus. They try to hide behind the car, but when that doesn't work, they rush up to the research center. However, the Giganotosaurus follows them. so Malcolm distracts it by throwing a burning locust in its mouth, but it only allows them time to get inside the research center, and the Giganotosaurus easily breaks the glass of the center. It tries to drag Claire, but she stabs its eye with an electric taser, causing it to retreat. On the other side, because the fire has spread so much, Dodgson has no other option but to call for an evacuation, sending signals to all animals to move to the emergency containment. Meanwhile, the group devises a plan to escape, and Kayla says that they need to activate the Aerial Deterrent System, or ADS, which Claire says can be turned on from the control room in the facility. So they rush there. Meanwhile, the facility has been evacuated, and Dodgson tries to convince Ramsey to stick with him and start again. He gathers important documents, but quickly realizes that it was Ramsey who reported the program to Malcolm. However, Ramsey isn't intimidated and joins the group, telling them that they need to shut down the primary system, because only then they will have enough power to activate the ADS. Claire and Ellie decide to go to the upper floor to shut the system, but Owen asks for 8 minutes before they shut the system, so he can rescue Beta. They go to their respective floors while Dodgson escapes in a pod. Claire tells Ellie that she has many regrets about her past, so Ellie comforts her, saying that she is doing her best now and that is all that really matters. But the topic changes when they come across the swarm of dead locusts. They move past it and shut the system, which causes Dodgson's pod to lose power as well, leaving him stranded in the middle of the mines. Meanwhile, Alan, Maisie, and Owen find Beta, but it's too fast for them to inject it with a tranquilizer. So Maisie steps forward, catching Beta's attention. They form a triangle to confuse Beta, and it goes to attack Alan, but Owen manages to knock it unconscious. They think the job is done, but the system starts rebooting, and a few living locusts attack the women. They don't have time to shut it off again, so Claire uses an axe to destroy the system, which shifts power and activates the ADS. Meanwhile, as Dodgson escapes his pod, he is met with a trio of Dilophosaurus who force him back into the pod before killing him. On the other side, Kayla looks at the aircraft ready to fly it when Dr. Henry comes out and asks them to let him join them. He explains that he can end the locust plague after studying Maisie, and she agrees, saying that's what Charlotte would have wanted. Kayla brings them the plane, but Ramsey explains that all the animals have shifted into the center. But it's too late, as Kayla has already gotten the aircraft inside the boundaries. They get down and run from a fight between a Giganotosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus, where Kayla shoots a flare to distract them and allow the group time to get into the aircraft. A Therizinosaurus teams up with the T-Rex, and they manage to kill the Giganotosaurus. Once they reach the mainland, those injured are given medical assistance, while Ramsey and Malcolm testify against Biosyn's systematic corruption. Ellie and Alan rekindle their romantic relationship and decide to expose Biosyn together. Dr. Henry releases a host locust carrying the pathogen, gradually eradicating the swarms and revolutionizing modern genetics, which he attributes to Charlotte Lockwood. The UN declares Biosyn Valley as an animal sanctuary, where dinosaurs will live freely, safe from the outside world. Kayla buys the Biosyn aircraft, while Beta reunites with Blue, who looks at Owen tenderly as if thanking him for returning his child. In the final scene, Charlotte's old video plays, where she suggests that the only correct way of survival is to coexist with all living things. Jurassic World Rebirth opens in 2008. The megacorporation InGen is developing genetically modified dinosaurs. At that moment, a scientist steps into the chamber of their newest specimen, the D-Rex, a mutated Tyrannosaurus with 6 limbs. Just before he reaches the security door, he drops a chocolate wrapper. Instead of picking it up, he goes inside, and the wrapper slips into the door mechanism, jamming the system and leaving the passage open. The emergency alarm blares, and the team scrambles to evacuate as the D-Rex roams free inside the laboratory. One scientist manages to secure the door, but the man who caused the problem is trapped on the wrong side and pleads for help. Moments later, the predator appears. With its massive claws, it grabs the trapped scientist and devours him. Today, genetically engineered dinosaurs have spread across the globe after the failure of the old theme park projects. But climate change and new diseases have wiped out most of them, and the survivors now shelter in the equatorial belt. This region is off limits to humans, yet big corporations still want to exploit these creatures. One of them, Parker Jen, calls in Zora, an ex-military specialist, with a job offer. Because of her combat and survival skills, they want to hire her to enter the dinosaur zone and collect samples from 3 species. The goal is to use their biological material to develop new medicines that could treat heart disease. Zora hears the proposal and says no at first. Then Martin, a representative of the company, puts a huge payment on the table, enough for her to walk away from life as a fighter. There's a catch. The mission is top secret, and Zora must bring along a dinosaur expert, Dr. Henry Loomis. Zora and Martin head to the Paleontology Museum to find Dr. Henry, who is struggling to keep his place open as public interest in dinosaurs fades. Worried the museum will shut down, Henry accepts the offer and lays out the plan for the 3 target species. First is the Mosasaurus, a massive marine predator. Second is the Titanosaur, a land giant even larger than a Brachiosaurus. Finally, they must track the Quetzalcoatlus, a flying reptile and the largest of the pterosaurs. With the mission clear, the next step is to build the expedition and security team. Zora takes Henry and Martin to Suriname to meet old contacts there. She pulls together a group with different skills, and the team is set. They follow Martin's plotted route. Unaware, it leads straight to the island of modified dinosaurs along the way. Martin uses the ship's radar to lock onto their first target, the Mosasaur, moving through the Atlantic. In the same waters, a sailor named Ruben is on a final family trip with his daughters Isabella and Teresa before Teresa leaves for university. She has brought her boyfriend Xavier, who prefers to stay shut in his cabin. Ruben dislikes him, but before the tension flares, Teresa spots a strange shape cutting through the sea. A heavy impact slams the boat. Ruben rushes to check, and a huge creature flips the vessel. He orders his daughters onto the upturned hull while he tries to free Xavier, who is trapped inside. Xavier breaks out at the last moment, only to be chased through the waves by the sea predator. He barely makes it back, clinging to the wreck as the family drifts, with a gigantic creature circling the waters around them. At dawn, Duncan is in the ship's control room when he catches Ruben's emergency call over the radio. He brings it to Zora, but Martin and the others argue against a detour. They're closing in on the Mosasaur signal. Duncan goes anyway and orders El Clerk to turn the vessel and respond minutes later. Ruben spots the ship and fires a flare. Duncan's team hauls the family aboard. Zora asks what flipped their boat, and from Teresa's account, Dr. Henry concludes it was a Mosasaur. Then the radar updates. There aren't just one, but two of the marine predators, both speeding towards them. Ruben asks what's happening. Martin brushes it off, saying they'll drop the family somewhere safe soon. Meanwhile, Zora and Duncan prepare the gear to collect samples when a gigantic Mosasaur bursts from the water beside the ship. Zora moves to the bow, clips her suit to a hook, and guided by Henry, aims her launcher at the creature. She fires and misses. Henry runs to fetch another device, but the Mosasaur lunges onto the deck, knocking Zora over the edge so she's left hanging. As the animal snaps at her, Henry hauls Zora back just in time. She fires again and hits. The device draws blood and tissue, then ejects. A small parachute opens and Henry grabs the canister before it drops into the sea. The team cheers. They've got the first sample, but 2 specimens remain and they still need to get Ruben's family somewhere safe. Henry quietly tells Zora they should hand the sample to a different pharmaceutical company. In Parker Genetics' hands, he warns any cure could be sold at outrageous prices. Before they can decide, Teresa spots movement outside. The Mosasaurs have returned, now alongside a pack of Spinosaurs hunting together and circling the ship. Bobby grabs a rifle and fires to scare them off. A Spinosaurus vaults aboard and snatches him into the water in one bite. The Mosasaur crashes back into the sea, tipping the vessel and sending Isabella sliding towards the edge. Ruben dives, catches her, and pulls her back an instant before the Spinosaurus can bite. The chase intensifies. Duncan turns the ship toward a rocky stretch to shake the predators. Teresa moves to send an emergency radio call, but Martin blocks her. If anyone learns they've entered a restricted zone, the mission is finished. He yanks for the radio. Teresa slips and tumbles overboard. She screams for help. Xavier grabs a buoy and leaps in after her. Seeing their daughter in danger and the ship failing, Ruben and Isabella jump too to help pull them in. The Mosasaur rams the hull, driving the vessel into the rocks. The impact cripples the engine room and the ship lurches out of control. Duncan orders everyone to abandon ship and take the equipment. Moments later, the vessel slams into the island's shoreline and is left barely intact. Inside a coastal cave, Xavier and Teresa reach safety. Teresa says the expedition's leader abandoned her. Moments later, Ruben and Isabella arrive and the 4 of them push through the tunnel until they emerge to a striking view outside. There's no time to admire it. Ruben urges everyone to keep moving and find a village where they can call for help. Meanwhile, Martin, Zora, Duncan, and the others make it to shore and scramble to recover their gear. Nina isn't as lucky. As she tries to rejoin the group, a Spinosaurus attacks and devours her, taking her pack with it. With another teammate gone, Zora demands answers. Martin finally explains. This island was used for dinosaur experiments. The lab crossbred different species for Jurassic World, sending the best specimens to the park. The malformed or aggressive ones were abandoned here because destroying them was considered too costly. With the truth out, Duncan argues they should find the family and leave. Zora refuses. She's determined to finish the job and secure the payment. She orders everyone to gather the equipment and collect the remaining samples within 24 hours, the time it will take for the rescue helicopter to arrive. With few options, the team agrees. Their first priority is to find a safe place to spend the night before the sun goes down. Far away, Ruben and his family spot a plumbing line stamped with the engine logo and decide to follow it, hoping it leads to the nearest village. Back with Zora's team, they wade into a long swamp to hide their trail from predators. Midway through, Zora tells Martin she saw Teresa slip out of the control room and thought she glimpsed him inside, yet the girl still fell into the water. Martin shrugs it off, claiming the dinosaur capsized the ship and there was nothing he could do. Zora isn't convinced, but presses on until they reach a patch of dry ground. They pause to rest. Then a massive tentacle rises from the murky water, sending everyone moving again. The team pushes into dense forest. At a lake, Martin kneels to fill his canteen and spots a military ID lanyard. He looks up to see a helicopter wreck hung in the trees. The pilot's body, long dead, still grips a pistol. Using a stick, Martin carefully retrieves the weapon. Ruben leads his family deeper into the forest, asking them to gather sturdy sticks to clear obstacles from their path. As daylight fades, they set up a small camp. Xavier offers to take first watch so Ruben can sleep beside his daughters. Grateful, Ruben admits he judged the young man too quickly. Xavier smiles and steps away briefly to take care of business. A little later, Isabella wakes to a soft rustling and spots a baby aqualops edging nearer. The small creature is gentle, so she shares a piece of chocolate and lets it curl up beside her. At dawn, Zora and the team reach a broad green field where they hope to find titanosaurs. It looks empty, until a massive tail rises behind a low ridge. Moments later, a pair of titanosaurs appear. While they graze, Henry moves in for a closer look. Zora follows, raises her launcher and tags one at the neck. The device fills with blood and tissue, securing their second sample. Now only one target remains, a carnivorous flyer that nests in the island's mountains. Ruben keeps leading his family through the forest and lets Isabella carry the baby aqualop she's named Dolores. They tumble down a steep hill and Ruben injures his leg, but everyone is otherwise okay. From below, Teresa spots a ship moored near a small port that might hold supplies. She heads off to check. At the dock, she finds the carcass of a huge dinosaur, half-eaten. As she edges closer, a smaller predator slips away, because a Tyrannosaurus Rex is dozing on the far side. Teresa freezes, then quietly slips aboard the ship. Inside, she finds an emergency dinghy. It's heavy, so she drags it across the deck uncomfortably close to the sleeping T-Rex. Ruben and Xavier try to signal her to leave it, but she inflates the lifeboat anyway. The T-Rex stirs, wakes, and lumbers off toward the opposite bank without spotting her. With the dinghy ready, the family pushes onto the water, trying not to draw attention. The T-Rex soon notices and strides toward them. They paddle hard, but the predator easily closes the distance and flips the boat. The beast toys with them, circling while Ruben, Teresa, and Xavier swim for a narrow gap in the lakeside rocks. Isabella is trapped beneath the overturned dinghy, screaming for help. The T-Rex bites into the boat, heaving it aside, but fails to catch her. She breaks free and swims to her family. They squeeze into a small rock crevice. The T-Rex lunges again, wedges its head in the gap, then gives up and withdraws. Shaken but alive, they discover the dinghy isn't ruined. The four climb back aboard and continue their crossing. Higher up in the island's mountains, Zora, Henry, and the others reach a pterosaur nesting site. Martin suggests it's safer to take a sample from an egg rather than an adult. Henry agrees, and with Zora and El Clerk, they abseil down to a cave. Inside, they find a nest of eggs. Henry works quickly, carefully drawing material without harming the chicks. He's almost done when a massive Quetzalcoatl sweeps in and charges the intruders. Henry scrambles back and drops the sample canister, which skids to the cave's edge. Trying to help, El Clerk hurls a rock, only enraging the giant flyer. It strikes, yanking on Henry's rope and hauling him out of the cave. Zora grabs him and holds on. At the same time, Martin and Duncan pull El Clerk in, only to watch the pterosaur snap him up whole. Henry lunges for the canister, but its ejection mechanism triggers and it shoots from his hand. Then his rope snaps. He plunges into the lake below, hitting the water hard, but alive. The canister parachutes down and lands intact beside him. Henry reunites with the team, the third sample secured. With the mission complete, they can finally leave the island. Night falls as Ruben and his family reach an old engine base, but it's deserted. Minutes later, Zora and her team arrive and head for the base's helipad to wait for the helicopter. On the way, Zora spots footprints in the dirt, likely Ruben's family, and tracks them down. She's relieved to find them alive, but Teresa is furious and demands to know where Martin is. When he shows up, she accuses him of stopping her radio call and letting her fall from the ship. Martin claims he was going to help, but suspicion spreads through the group. Realizing he's exposed, Martin draws his pistol and orders Zora to hand over the case of samples, then tells everyone to wait for extraction. A strange hum rolls across the compound. Henry guesses engine's generator has kicked in. And seconds later, the base lights flare to life. They've gathered in a fuel station section of the lab, and loud music suddenly blares from the convenience store. The noise and lights draw in a new predator, a hybrid that looks part pterosaur, part velociraptor. Ruben hustles his family into the shop, but the creature crashes through the ceiling and dives after them. Isabella slips into the freezer with Dolores. The door's reflection hides them, and the beast moves on. When the path clears, she reunites with the others, and they hunker behind a shelf as the hybrid prowls nearer. Spotting a hatch to a service tunnel in the floor, Ruben yanks it open. The four of them scramble down and flee into the dark, searching for an exit. Outside, Zora and Martin squeeze under a car as the hybrid snaps at them. Henry and Duncan sprint the other way and duck into the genetics lab where the dinosaurs were made. On a computer, they spot a hidden tunnel that leads to a port with a waiting ship. A helicopter then circles overhead. Duncan heads to find the others while Henry stays to signal the pilots. As Henry moves to leave, a massive six-limbed creature smashes through the lab door. Out on the tarmac, Martin sees the helicopter and bolts, abandoning Zora and taking the samples. Zora slips into the bushes and watches the hybrid drop into a tunnel where she hears Ruben and his family. She follows without hesitation. Henry reaches the helipad, finds a box of flares and fires one to draw the helicopter in. As it begins to land, the D-Rex looms out of the mist and swallows the aircraft in a single bite. From a distance, Duncan witnesses the attack and hides. He hears Ruben's voice echoing from the tunnel, and Henry arrives moments later. Instead of trying to exit, Duncan orders everyone into the passage. The tunnel leads straight to the port and the escape boat. They hurry inside and move as fast as they can, knowing Martin is also heading there. If he reaches the ship first, they'll lose their only way off the island. On the way, the group runs into Zora, who draws her gun without hesitation and shoots, dropping the hybrid that was closing in. With the tunnel clear, they push on toward the port, but an iron grating blocks the passage. The control panel is outside. Everyone strains against the bars, but it won't budge. Isabella squeezes through and sprints to the panel. In her backpack, Dolores wriggles as if warning her the D-Rex is near. Isabella gets the door open just as the massive beast appears, ready to strike. It looks hopeless, until Martin roars in with a car and accidentally draws the monster's attention. The D-Rex crunches the vehicle in its jaws. Martin panics, tries to run with the samples, and is snatched and devoured, leaving the case behind. Zora grabs the samples and the group bolts for the port. The D-Rex charges back toward Isabella. To save her, Duncan fires another flare and dives into the water, luring the creature away. He leads it into the forest. Zora screams for him, but the only sign is his flare dying out among the trees. Fearing he's sacrificed himself, she rushes everyone aboard. The D-Rex makes one last attempt to attack, but the group clears the harbor and escapes. The giant predator turns back toward the island. Zora grieves for her friend, until another flare shoots up in the distance. Duncan emerges and is pulled aboard by his mates. With everyone safe, Ruben pilots the ship away while Isabella keeps Dolores tucked in her pack. After the ordeal, Zora decides to set the reward aside and promises Henry they'll release the samples to the public so everyone can access the medicines. With the video concluding, I just want to say thank you for watching up until this point. I'll be posting a few bangers over the next few weeks and I'll be glad to see you then. Stay awesome and take care.